So we are here again, an INTP and an ENFJ. Yeah. Now to talk about differences between introverts and extroverts, and about the places that we'd like to visit, music tastes, activities, and what we do for leisure, for example. So, what do you do for leisure in your free time?
In my free time, I enjoy to play, whether it is playing music, my music instrument, as well as to be to play video games. Sometimes I also do enjoy to read romances and study books, so I can be up, so I can study better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to
And
have
you?
a better understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, to have a better understanding.
Me too. Yeah, I actually do the same thing more or less. I spend a lot of time. What I do for leisure is kind of weird because it's what probably people would do for work. That is, I like reading books depending on the topic, about philosophy or biology or anything that a topic that I would like. I listen to music sometimes, and I listen to a lot of debates and take notes about what I'm reading or listening. And yes, I also play video games with you sometimes.
Yeah.
So we have similar tastes in what we do for leisure. It's interesting.
Yeah, of course. I'd like also to say, besides, for me, besides to play video games and to listen to music and to study music, I also enjoy to do, to take music for my friends. So I sometimes create things with music, so I could bring that themes to them, and so we can debate as well as you do, and try to learn with it, because everyone has a different point of view, whether it is cultural or I don't know. Don't you like to do that as well?
Yes, I like comparing different points and different ideas, and I like to make my arguments into a system on which I know what to say in case a person says this. I do that in real life too, like, for example, um, I don't know, like if I'm going to have like a presentation in university, I prepare my speech in a way that everything is according to this one system, like one line. When I say this, and then I say that, and then I say that. But yes, I like preparing things to the point on which I more or less know what I'm going to say next, and what the other person is going to say next.
And then how would you do? Let's suppose that you're caught off guard.
Yeah.
Then you have to be creative. How do you do in that context?
I take maybe 1 second to think about what that person said or two, and I adapt to the situation. I answer the person's question in the way that I think that it's appropriate at the time. But yeah, I think I have kind of a script of what the person is going to say and then what I'm going to say. But yeah, sometimes people go off script. I don't really like that.
Yeah, I see. Because at least in music, I used to use the creativity, so I can learn in different ways a specific theme about music. That's why I asked you about being cog off guard and to be creative.
Mhm.
Uh,
When
yeah.
it comes to, for example, places that you would like to visit, where would you go?
Despite I like to be with people in a certain way. I like to be first of all I like to be with people because I recognize I need help from them. I need their support. Otherwise, if I in long term, if I don't get their help and support for me, I used to get more and more exhausted. So I,
So you get exhausted if you are not with people?
yeah, in a certain way, because what I mean is that if I don't get their help and have a little chat like we are having, sometimes I might get a little anxious. Don't you see?
Yeah.
Although I should also say that I enjoy and take the best of being to myself, because being alone does not mean I am lonely,
Yeah, of
but
course.
although I am preparing myself, I'm preparing my person, my persona. Don't you think so?
Yeah, unlike extroverts, it's interesting because introverts get tired as time progresses in a conversation. Like we can begin, especially in very big social groups, like in university or in a party, or um, with many people. As time progresses, like we get um, tired and tired. It's like a social battery that starts dying as time moves on,
Hmm.
and then we have to go like home, listen to music for a while, stay for by myself, to charge that battery. It's a very common concept. This, while extroverts kind of work the other way around. You stay kind of a bit of tired, or you start getting tired by being at home, for example, alone, and you start needing to go outside to meet someone. Is that right?
Yes, although yes, you're right. I don't. Sometimes I do not appreciate to have a continuous lifestyle. I enjoy to have as well something different, so I could
Really?
have a wider spectrum of new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Although answering to your question about a place where I'd like to go,
Yeah.
probably I would have preference to go to an island because of its simplicity, and that it is what I was telling to you. Being alone does not mean to be lonely,
Mm-hmm.
but to be alone is to prepare ourselves and have a moment
Yeah.
to analyze ourselves and keep calm.
Yeah. I think you're right. Um, I would go. I don't really like islands. I You were born in an island. You are used to it. I think islands are a bit like claustrophobic. After a while, it feels like you know everything about that island, unless of course it's like Dubai or something. Um, but I don't know. I would probably go to Norway, maybe to or to Japan, which is ironic because it's an island, but it's very big. Um, I would like to live like, if I went to Norway, I would probably live in a town that is not too big or too small. I've kind of make a bit of research on that. In a calm place where, I don't know.
So you're surrounded with trees and water, is it?
Oh yeah, I would like to do that. Like, I would do that, for example, if I went to live like in Korea or China or Japan, on which I would like to live in a city that has like mountains, and I would live in a house in a mountain, where I could go down to the city to be with people if I wanted to, but my house would be located in a place where there are really no people.
Yeah. Despite I am extrovert, I also have that point of view. So I would like to live away from the people, so I could try to forget my concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we kind of agree that it's good to have our own time.
Of course, I have this point of view. The way we are extroverts and introverts depends of the lifestyle we use to have from the day we are born to nowadays.
I think it's a psychological trait. I think maybe it does influence what you do, but I think that what you do is already influenced by your biology, by your mental state. I think you are born an introvert or an extrovert, and then you just act out what your cognition already is in the real world. But yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I told about this because in different countries we cannot speak about certain things that in another countries or in specific regions of the place we live in. In some places we cannot speak about certain things that in another place are completely based things. They're easy things. Like we could now speak about a religion and to have an sensitive criticism about this, while if we go to Turkey or Israel, it is a very sensitive topic. So should we avoid it or not? Is it wrong or right?
I mean, I think it's wrong to prohibit an idea or to prohibit a topic. In this case, if you go, for example, to North Korea, you cannot criticize the politicians, and the politicians on which there is actually just one that matters. If you go to the United States or to a very religious country, you may have difficulties if you are an atheist. And you can hear this from other atheists, depending of course on the people that you meet and the people on the town that you live in. Fortunately for us, we don't really have these problems here. We are free to have a debate about pretty much anything. And I think that's the right thing to do. And to prohibit an idea is really absurd. It's the beginning of a tautology, of a dictatorship. I think it's kind of nonsense that it happens sometimes in some countries.
So I see. There was a sociologist. His name was Emil Durkheim,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to say that the obstacles that the society puts into people puts them in a state of mind that they feel stressed, they feel anxious.
Yeah.
So these obstacles exist because of the structure of the society. Although, in contrast, there is another sociologist. I don't remember. It is Karl Marx.
Yeah.
Which say he goes into more depth. So he says that society starts on the relationship between two people, and so what I mean with this is that these obstacles that exist on society, they're built from people, and so they're built from people to people, and so they have to debate it. so as you said it, I think we both also think that our lifestyles depend on the history of the country.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
Yes, of course, because the history of the country is something that is never finished. It's something that obviously happens in the past, and whatever action happens will have triggered future consequences. So, for example, if there was no French Revolution, we may have never got out of monarchy in Europe, because the beginning of the end of monarchy brings the end of monarchy in general. For example, or the end of a dictatorship like we had before 74. So yes, of course, the history of a country does matter when it comes to what people have in the present, depending, of course, on the actions that were taken in the past. So that's why I think it's important to study history, so that you can understand how we got here to this political, sociological state that we have now, from the evolution of the past. And especially because history kind of has a tendency to repeat itself sometimes. So it's important to be aware of what may happen in the future, knowing the consequences of what happened in the past. So I think that's it.
Of course. So would like to ask you this. So if we both agree on these themes, then I think in music, your music tastes and your family music tastes would also vary according to its generation, obviously, don't you think so?
Yeah, of course, yes. Especially because my parents' music taste, even though it's very evolved, for example, there was no such thing as black metal back then, so they couldn't possibly like it because it was non-existent. So of course, the cultural and even the sociological state of the family, like rich families, have even today the stereotype of classical music, opera, and more refined music. It's a stereotype, of course, to people of lower. It doesn't have to be like this, but it's a stereotype. So yes, of course, it matters to the music that you listen to today, what your family taught you. What is your music taste, by the way? What do you listen more?
Well, I enjoy to listen into contemporary music. Contemporary music by itself, it is general. I would like to specify into more depth. The type of music I enjoy the most to listen, it is not very much known, at least through the community I live with. It is I enjoy to listen 3 or 4, and I enjoy ambient music, drone music, indeterminism music, and of course some I forgot its name, but it is contemporary as well. Yes, and according to you, what you were saying, of course people could not enjoy very much contemporary music probably because of the dictatorship,
of course.
and all those concerns, at least in Portugal, that was going on. So and since people did not have much access to knowledge and books, so they could not be aware of the new music that was going through, that
of course
music was going to create.
Yeah, we have, as you know, like intervention music that was just meant to spark ideas into the people, into a revolution, Portugal has a lot of that, and I'm sure other countries do too. So music is has to adapt to the time, of course, because you can't make, if you are under the regime of a dictatorship, then you are by definition not free to do whatever you want. So music has to adapt to that too.
Of course, so music in the 12th century, it's used to change very quickly, mostly because of these social and political interventions. The 12th century was the time that the music changed the quickest, because most of all of its experiments and the wars, so people were used to listen those kind of opera thing.
Yeah.
But also there was a very interesting and good invention that was the sonograph. The sonograph permitted some musicians to tape traditional songs.
Yeah.
So the folklore music tend to be more and more present nowadays because there are people taping into each other. So this is it. I also think that people, because nowadays we have more technology, we can research more things, more music
Yeah,
genres.
we can do, yes, we can invent a bit more with music that we used to be able to in the past. I think it's interesting, yeah.
Nowadays music, it not used to be other in other times because of its experimentation and meaningfulness. I saw in one of your videos that you said you did not understand very well art, but
Art, yes.
yeah, art in itself. But this is it. Nowadays, arts tend to be more meaningful and give a more meaning.
Yes, but yes. People, do you think so, that people tend to go for meaning than for, I don't know, beauty or the way it sounds or the way it looks?
Of course, because of experimentation. So ambient music and drone music, indeterminism music, is about meaning. We have evolved into a more a less performative style of performance into a more meaningful thing.
Yeah, but that's very, even though that genre of that type of music exists, it's still very small, isn't it?
Yes, because in contrast of swing and dance music, it used to reach more people because people felt it was meant for dancing. In contrast with drone, ambient, and this music, it did not reach people because they did not understand it. It was not very well spread as dance music. And that's why.
That's interesting. The evolution of music.
It is different, as we said in the last video. It is different to be good or bad. We should not put it on our dish. It is very relative and a stereotype of good and bad music. What I mean with this is that music and arts themselves have evolved into obey into certain into certain data and formulas, and less performative as opera. As we know, opera it is both theater and music that used to represent a Greece, a thing from Greece.
Mhm.
Although it is a concept as well, ambient music uses to represent another concept. It is more conceptual. So people in ambient music can imagine, for example, the sound. Something minimalistic. It is minimalistic.
Mhm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Changing, for example, to I don't know. How do you see the world, for example, and its people? I don't know. Like you can approach that in any way you want.
I have to think a little.
Sure.
Although the way I see the world, or that I'd like to see the world, I don't think I have a specific answer for it, because according to the society I live in, I have a point of view, and I think I'd like to know more about other societies.
So, what do you think about the world and its people?
The concept I'd like to say about it is that since I have never lived in a foreign country, or since I have very little contact about foreign people, I don't know very well and in depth different point of views. So I'd like to also say that the way I would enjoy to see the world is that it's important for people to reach more education. I'd like people could be more present in schools and have a good education systems, so they could be more creative, more critics. This is one thing I'd like for people to have, a better education.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. The way I see the world is maybe, I don't know, I like the interactions that people do with one another. That's maybe why I'm in psychology. One of the reasons that is to study why people do what they do and why they act the way they act. I think the world is a very interesting place. I find people less interesting though. I like to focus on things rather than people. And that's why even in psychology I would like to go to neuroscience to study the brain of the people instead of the person. Because the brain is a lot more interesting in my opinion than people are. So I think I like objects more than I like people, or I give more value to objects than to people. But yes, you are right. It's very interesting, and there are a lot of things. And education is clearly something that is missing, and we should make efforts to know more about stuff, even that stuff that we don't really have an interest in, just to have a wider spectrum of knowledge and of conversation. I think it's very interesting and it's very important.
Yeah. So the same way you're saying that you like to study people because of their brains. I
like the brains of the person.
Yeah.
Not
yes.
particularly the people.
Yes. I say I'd like to point that people should try to reach and have more opportunities about education, because my education is leading me towards to be a teacher, and so I enjoy to be a reference for the people because the things I know, and I'm willing to make people more sensitive to different concepts. That's why.
Yes, me too. Agreed. People get often stuck. Everyone does on ideas that they have already preconceived and ideas that they already believe in, and I like to kind of break those stereotypes, those ideas that they already have, and introduce something that they don't like to hear. I think this is why I like debate. It's because I like to compare ideas and to see which idea holds on better, who has the better logic there. But yes, that requires again knowledge. It requires you to know a lot about the other side too. For example, when debating with religious people, it's important, for example, to know a lot about the Bible, to know a lot about the history of Catholicism and so on. To talk about music, it's important, like to know a lot, like you do, about the beginnings of music, with the people that made first instruments with bones and stuff like that. And I think knowledge is important in a wide scale.
Yeah, the similarity between music and dance music and
Yes.
and
And how it evolved,
poetry.
to go there.
Yeah, this is it. I think I've said the key of my point of view is that education. It is my point of view. This is what I'd like to people have more access, education, and you'd like to study how people work.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. This is our point of view.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We have a lot of similarities actually, on the way
Yes.
that we think.
Yes, so I think just to finish my concept is that since despite I enjoy to have moments for myself to rest and to reorganize my life, I am really willing to be a good teacher, and with this good teacher, it is relative first of all, but for me, a whether a good teacher or a good person is a person that is open-minded and willing in a polite form to discuss with other people.
Of course. Yeah.
The contrasts. I have to step up and show what I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. That's
For me,
too.
this is the key to be a good person, to be polite.
Yes, exactly. And it's known that if you want to change someone's mind, it's good to agree with that person and to kind of show them why they are wrong from the inside out. For example, I think there are tests done, for example, with Nazis after the Second World War and even today, in which to explain to, for example, a neo-Nazi why Nazism is based on injustice and lack of equality and in racism and all that. It's important, for example, to agree, to say controversial stuff like, yes, you are right, white people are superior to black people, for example, if you are talking to a Nazi. And then try to explain from the inside out why that concept is nonsense. And it works a lot of the times, because you are not completely putting walls on the person and saying, no, that's nonsense, that's not right. If you start with that, you are already creating like a divergency between you and the person. So it's important to agree sometimes, only to destroy the idea from the inside out. And I think it's done in psychology. I've read that before, and I think it works. So, so concluding, we have a lot of things that we agree on. We like different types of music, though. And we have similar ideas on the world and about knowledge, about the place that we want to live in, I would in the mountains, away from people,
Or in islands.
or in an island. But in an island with people, or near people, or in a more...
I'd like, despite I'd like to be in an island, I would prefer to
in the center of the city, or in a more peripheral area.
I don't think it does matter, because what matters for me is that is not the place where I am, but for the place I go, I do not bring hate around.
Sure, yeah.
I don't think that the place itself might change people, but people might change others if they spread hate around,
Yeah.
or love.
Yeah. And I think that's a positive note to end the discussion. So, thanks.
Thank you, man.